In 2025, the entire global pharmaceutical industry was rocked by a seismic shift. We're talking about a $500 billion problem that forced every single major player to completely rethink their strategy, their science, and even their core identity. Now, this wasn't just another year. This was the start of a whole new era. Here at HDIN Research, we've torn through the financial reports and strategic plans of the world's biggest pharma companies. And in this analysis, we're going to show you exactly who came out on top.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into that massive industry reshuffle. Then, we'll dive into the absolute gold rush for weight loss drugs and see who got crowned king. After that, we'll look at the titans of oncology and then the giants who had to pivot after the pandemic. And stick around because at the end, we're giving you our expert verdict on who's set to win in 2026.
So what was it that triggered this massive industry-wide scramble? Well, it all boils down to one simple, yet terrifying, concept for any drug company: the patent cliff.
To put it simply, the patent cliff is that moment a company's golden goose, its most profitable drug, loses its legal protection. And once that patent is gone, cheaper generic versions just flood the market, and the revenue from that once dominant drug can fall off a cliff. And let me tell you, in 2025, some of the biggest drugs in history went right over the edge.
You want a perfect example? Look no further than Humira. For years, this was one of the world's absolute best-selling drugs. But in 2025, as those cheaper alternatives hit the market, its sales were nearly cut in half, a drop of almost 50%. Now that is the kind of number that gives CEOs nightmares, and it's the force that drove every single strategic decision we're about to talk about.
So this massive pressure forced every company to a crossroads. It was a fundamental choice. Do you go on a shopping spree and acquire smaller, innovative firms to plug that revenue hole? Or do you get lean, sell off the slower parts of your business, and focus all your firepower on the next big thing? This one choice, right here, is what defined the winners and the losers of 2025.
And what was the biggest next big thing? Oh, it was the GLP-1 market for sure. This is a class of drugs that absolutely revolutionized diabetes and weight loss treatment. The demand was just off the charts. It created a modern-day gold rush, with two companies really leading the charge.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the New World Order. In 2025, Eli Lilly, powered by its superstar drugs Mounjaro and Zepbound, just pulled ahead in the revenue race, bringing in a staggering $36.5 billion. That put them just ahead of the market's pioneer, Novo Nordisk, who still brought in an incredible $33.1 billion from their family of products, including, Ozempic and Wegovy.
And to really wrap your head around the scale of Lilly's win, just look at Mounjaro, a single drug. $23 billion in global sales in 1 year. That is what a modern blockbuster looks like, and it accounted for more than half of the company's entire revenue in 2025. Just incredible.
But, revenue doesn't quite tell the whole story. If we look at market volume, so the actual number of prescriptions out there, a different leader emerges. While Lilly won on dollars, it's Novo Nordisk that still commands the biggest piece of the pie by volume, with 43% of the market. This tells us the war for dominance is really far from over.
All right, let's move to our next major battleground, oncology. The fight against cancer has, for a long time, been a core focus for Big Pharma. And 2025 really saw the established titans digging in their heels to defend their turf.
And here you can see the established powers. Merck's Keytruda continued its absolute reign, growing another 7% to hit over $31 billion in sales. But the real story here, the one to watch, is the aggressive challenger. Look at AstraZeneca. Their drugs Imfinzi and Enhertu surged by 37% and 46%. That shows a company that is rapidly gaining ground, while Roche, another major player, held pretty steady.
And AstraZeneca isn't just focused on today. This quote from their own 2025 report says it all. They're not just trying to compete, they're building a pipeline that they believe will spit out over 25 blockbuster drugs by the end of the decade. That is a seriously bold statement of intent for where they think they're headed.
Okay, so finally, let's look at the companies that chose that second path we talked about earlier, the ones who decided to streamline and focus. You see, after the unbelievable highs of the pandemic, some of these giants had to radically restructure for a brand new reality.
And Pfizer is the absolute prime example here. The massive revenues from its COVID-19 products started to decline, which forced the company to hunt for its next major growth engine. And their solution was, it was bold and it was decisive.
So what they do, instead of building from scratch, Pfizer decided to just buy its way into the hottest market out there. By acquiring a company called Metsera, it got 10 different obesity drug candidates in a single deal. This is a high-stakes, all-in kind of bet to compete directly with Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk.
Now, Johnson & Johnson took a completely different approach. Instead of buying their way into a new field, they decided to narrow their own focus, to basically become a more specialized, high-tech version of themselves.
Let's just break down this transformation. First, they spun off their consumer health division, the stuff you see in every pharmacy, into a new company called Kenvue. Then, in 2025, they announced they were going to do the same thing with their orthopedics business. The result? A much leaner, more focused J&J that's doubling down on the high-margin, high-innovation worlds of advanced medicines and medical technology.
Okay, so, after analyzing the patent cliff, the GLP-1 gold rush, the oncology wars, and all these strategic pivots, we've come to our conclusion.
Based on all the evidence from 2025, which of these companies are really in the best position to not just survive, but to truly thrive and dominate in the year ahead?
All right, here are our top 3 picks from the HDIN team. First up, Eli Lilly. Their momentum in the GLP-1 market is just undeniable, and it's created a revenue engine that is simply unmatched right now. Second, AstraZeneca. They are firing on all cylinders with a really diverse portfolio and that hugely ambitious pipeline that promises future growth. And third, Johnson & Johnson. Their aggressive strategy of M&A and spin-offs to refocus on high-growth innovation makes them an incredibly formidable player for the future.
Now, this has been the high-level analysis. If you want to go deeper, our full research report has our complete methodology and detailed profiles on all 11 of the pharma giants that we analyzed. You could download that for free at hdnresearch.com. The big question for 2026 isn't just who's going to grow the fastest, but whose strategic bets are going to fundamentally reshape the future of medicine itself. Thanks for joining us.